Welcome back, everybody. This is how I deal with negative feedback online. You could call it criticism, you can call it hate, you can call it whatever you want to. When you make stuff on social media, if you have, a business, you make content, you share your views on things, people are going to like you. People are going to like what you do. People are going to dislike you, dislike what you do. People are going to have things they have to say about what they think you could do better or what they would do if they were you. And I've personally had a lot of challenges with how I deal with this. How do you respond to it? How do you make sense of all these different voices on the internet saying how you should live your life or what you should do, what they think about you? The reason this video is top of mind, I've made videos similar to this in the past, but over time I've kind of changed how I think, and I don't think everybody's seen all the videos. So I kind of wanted to update today because I was talking with a YouTuber, actually another big gaming creator, coach, pro player. For those of you who don't know, many of you know me as the Rocket League coach guy. If you watch this channel, you might know me as kind of the Rocket League coaching business guy. And he was asking me questions about like, hey man, one thing I've noticed is that when you get, kind of hate, or when you get, because he understands my brand and what people have said on all sides about me over time. He's like, I'm just amazed at how you keep rolling with it, how you deal with it. And I was like, yeah, I mean, it hasn't, I said, thanks. It hasn't been something that I've always really known how to deal with. And I wanted to kind of document this video for him, my former self, my past self, my future self to hopefully learn from. So let's just talk about it. I don't have all the answers. But the reason, where I want to come at this from is what have I learned? What has been my experience? I definitely don't have all the answers, but I've changed kind of how I think about building a brand and listening to people online. Now, I used to have this idea when I kind of started out that in my business and in my content that if people gave you negative feedback, right? You have to imagine at the start, people usually are always cheering for you when you have 1,000, 10,000, subs or you're small. But when you start to get a following, when you start to do big things at a big level, people start to tell you what they like and what they don't like about you. And for the longest time, I kind of had a stance of, regardless of what other people say, if my name is called into conversations, if they voice what they think I should do, I'm going to stay out of it. I'm not going to respond on socials. I'm not going to address it. I'm just going to keep doing me. And I think that makes a lot of sense in most cases, but there are some times when your name is called into question by, let's say, somebody who's close to you, or let's say just somebody online who's making a comment about you, who has a following, and you have this question of like, do you respond? If it's negative, do you address it? Do you not address it? And it's this very complicated balance. There's no one right answer, but I just thought for the longest time, the right answer is always ignore. And the reason I thought that is because on the one hand, when somebody says something negative about you, you have the don't respond camp. And the don't respond camp is like, you shouldn't respond because you don't want to bring more attention to whatever they're saying. You want to lead by example. If they're like, let's say a smaller creator and they're like saying negative stuff about you, you definitely don't want to swing back at them. And I still agree with those things. But sometimes if somebody's saying something about you and you don't respond at all, people who are looking in, and especially my context, I'm a Rocket League YouTuber, I'm the Rocket League coach guy. In a small community, when somebody's saying something about you and you are not addressing it, that silence can send the wrong message. And so this is something that I kind of have started to change in the last year or two, because I talked with somebody else who had been through similar experiences, and they had told me how talking about things, there is a way where you can address things. Like, for example, somebody saying something negative, or you can take in feedback that doesn't, let's say, swing back at another side, but also still makes your point clear, right? And that advocates for yourself. And um, to me, it's been really hard to understand this of like respond, don't respond, because you have to understand like when you're making content, and this has always been the most difficult thing for me. I like to think that I'm somebody who's, aware of how people view me, and being self-aware and being on my personal development and getting better is something that's very important to me. But it's very challenging when you start to do content, because what starts to happen, what you have to remember is you get to a point on the internet where there are too many people to listen to. And like, for example, if you have 100 subs, you can pretty much listen to all of them and do things that all of them say. But the bigger you get, one person says you should upload more, one person says you should upload less. You literally can't do it at the same time. And so you get to this point where I think really the only answer, and what I'm starting to come to, is that there's no way to know whether people are right or wrong about what you should do, about whether you should listen. You have to be authentic to yourself. And the really challenging part is sometimes, and this is like a mistake I've made in the past, sometimes a lot of people will be telling you what you should do. And let's say a majority of people are saying one thing. Well, at the start, I would just do what the majority of people think. But that actually doesn't work, because oftentimes what the majority is saying doesn't necessarily have, it varies at points in time, right? The majority could say this one day, they could say this another day. And especially when it comes to, like, for example, what type of content you make, how you make your content, what type of business you run, how you run your business. Oftentimes the context you have as a business owner is much greater than the context that, somebody on YouTube might have just looking in. Sometimes, but not always. And so what I'm not saying is that you should just ignore everything and everyone, because this is where I went wrong. Instead, you need to look at it and say, and use your best judgment to say, understand who somebody is, where their advice is coming from, like what the place is, and does it align with your values? And you have to make a decision for yourself. And this has been really hard for me, because just in general, when you take advice from people, we often take advice from people who are close to us, but not who necessarily have what we want, right? And so you have to be very careful, because I definitely had some people in my life who would say things, and out of wanting the best for me, would tell me what they think I should do. But oftentimes that advice that you get from somebody who's close to you is what they would do if they were you, right? And for example, if you're asking your friend who works a corporate job what he would do if he was an entrepreneur, a business owner, about what he thinks you should do in a situation, he might try to give you advice, but his advice is virtually useless. And sorry, mom and dad, but this is kind of a position I was in with my mom and dad when I dropped out of school, right? To do Rocket League content. Obviously, that sounds like a crazy decision, and it is. But I went to them and said, what would you do? And of course, their advice was finish school. Why was their advice finish school? Because they had finished school themselves. So I hope you get what I'm saying. Like, when to change and when to take in feedback is very complicated. You have voices coming on the internet, which is one thing, but really, at the end of the day, you have to come at it from, who is this person? What are they saying? What perspective do they have? And what truth is there to it? What is their truth? And only then can you kind of like parse out, like, should you actually do anything about it? Should you respond to it? How should you change? And it hasn't been an easy lesson for me to learn, and I'm obviously still learning it because I haven't fully figured it out. But I mean, one of the hardest decisions for me was dropping out of school because so many people in my life were not recommending it. And then on the other hand, I've had some decisions in my Rocket League content where many people have said I should do one thing, and I haven't done it. And then it took me a while to come around to agreeing with what most people were saying. And then I agreed with the majority. And then I'm like, oh, okay, yes, this is true. And then I made changes accordingly. And it's really not easy. And so to that YouTuber and that person I was talking to, the minute you get into, let's call it the limelight, or you start to get a following, know that it is inevitable that you will start to, and I feel like everybody I've talked with who is big on YouTube have at one point felt like they were hated, or the most disliked person in the world. And it's very challenging. I went through this when I was 20, 21, 22, making mistakes publicly. And it feels like in that moment that you did everything wrong and it's all your fault. And you can get very down on yourself. But you have to remember that these things are all just points in time. When you're in the public light, your successes are going to be magnified. People are going to tell you all the things they love, and people are also going to tell you all the things they hate. And so what I wish somebody would have told me before I went into content is that you will be judged. People will send your clips to people. People will send your clips to group chats. Your friends will go, "What's this guy doing?" You will get people who support you at the start. When you're the underdog, when you are sort of the big dog, people will generally not support you. They'll be skeptical. You'll be viewed as like kind of the big guy or the big dog that people will like to take shots at. And it's okay. And it's normal. And the only way to really deal with this is to have a small group of people who are close to you that you can simplify in the noise, who you know have experience in one way or another, or who you know also have your best interests, and to talk with them through these issues. And at the end of the day, make decisions for yourself based on what you think is right. And it's very challenging. It's not easier. It's much easier said than done. And by no means do I have it figured out. But I just wanted to make this video to kind of talk about this stuff because it's something that has been very challenging to me. Candidly, I like to think I try to be more self-aware as I grow up, and being self-aware, something I've realized is I am much better at the sort of marketing, sales, numbers, growth, big ideas, big vision, dancing monkey on camera, doing my, spiel. This is what I do. Woo-woo-woo. But what I am not so great at is dealing with conflicts, navigating these conversations. And so this is something that I've really had to chunk down with how I look at it and really think about and talk through all the other. There's so many components here of what people are saying online, how close they are to you, how close they are to the truth, how you deal with the differing. And there are so many little things in here that you have to figure out how to deal with. And that for the longest time, I didn't even know existed. And as a result, I didn't know how to handle this. And so this is just something I'm learning and something I'm trying to get closer to understanding now. And I'm sure in 5 more years, I'll have different views on kind of brand and dealing with negativity. And because at that point, I'll have been doing business for a decade. Right now, we're 5 years in. So this is kind of what I've charted so far. And if you're somebody who's on personal development or, struggling with how others view you or having, issues with conflict, whether it's personal, social media, whatever it is, I hope that the way that I've kind of talked about these things, it helps. And, and I will update you all in the future. But yeah, that's me. Follow for more IRL stuff, business, self-development, personal development, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.